Okay. Right. So this is video 4, I think. Video 4. Am I right? Or am I
Yep.
wrong? Who knows?
Yeah.
So it's me, Mitesh, and Joel again. We thought this week we would loosely talk about the subject of collaborations. I know we've briefly talked about it before, and if we went over every collaboration, this conversation would probably last for about a year in itself. So we're just going to loosely go over it, talk about a few subjects like our favourite, sort of like what we look for, our favourite stores and collaborators, some of our personal favourites that we don't own and why we don't own them, and some of the favourites from our. So I guess we're just going to go with it. Everybody else is happy, yeah? Good to go. Wicked. So personally, I mean, when I'm looking, I know we all come from different backgrounds as well. I think that's one point to pick out. Joel, you were very much Air Max 1 and J3, Jordan 3s.
Yeah.
Mitesh, you've always had sort of like a runner background.
Yeah. Asics did or something. Yeah.
More of a like Jordan thing, more of recent. Like, is Jordan more of sort of? Am I right in saying you've had probably more Jordans recently than ever before?
Yeah, for me, yeah.
Maybe the influence of the other guy on this phone call that we were just talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I had more of sort of like a runner background as well. So I guess to a point, I don't want to sound too snobby when we have this conversation, because I think coming from people that and I think we talked about this quite a while back before we even started this sort of thing, about the art of the collaboration and how runners or companies that work with runners seem to do it a lot better than, I don't know, other brands, bigger brands maybe. I think that there's a lot that those bigger brands could learn from the smaller brands that are doing it. What do you guys, I mean, when you think of a collaboration, what do you guys think of?
I think you're right in saying that the smaller brands seem to have more creative license to do different things with, like any panel or completely changing anything they want. Whereas I think with Jordan, it's quite limited. Like, for example, the Travis, the backward swoosh thing was a thing that wasn't allowed, I don't think, for ages. So.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that later with the other models he's worked on.
Yeah.
What about you, Joe? What do you look for?
Yeah, I'll tell you actually on that point, the fact that flipping a swoosh upside down created such a hoo-ha is just kind of it's a sign that a small change actually is seen as quite a big thing in the world of Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm looking for, or when I think of a collaboration or a collaborator, it's normally on a runner. Normally it's sort of like the smaller brands like the Rue, the Diadora, the Asics, the New Balance. Maybe not so much New Balance because they're very sort of like minimal branding. They're very much like, I will stick your name on the tongue and the insole, and you wouldn't even know the rest of it.
Yeah.
I've got, and I mean on that point, I had a box out earlier on and the one that I was going to mention now, Saucony, and how each one of those collaborations, I'll take Saucony or Saucony, or I'm pronouncing it wrong, using it as an example, sort of like how they do everything from a story about the shoe, but then following that onto, the wrapping paper, the shoe box.
Yeah.
Do you see that from other brands like the Nikes, the Adidas, the Puma? Maybe not Reebok, because that probably would fall on the smaller categories as well.
I think they've been getting better at it over time. There's been a few in the last few years I've been super impressed with them. We'll kind of get onto those at the latter end of the video. But if you go back to, I suppose, what's now 5 years ago, Fragment 1 is basically a GR colorway with a stamp on the heel. It's about as polar opposite as you can get from the runner, kind of smaller runner brands that you were talking about earlier, going really into detail all the way down to the paper in the box, versus just a stamp on the heel of a shoe.
So with sort of like Jordan and Nike brand, I was thinking about it earlier, and because they obviously have got some absolute classic collaborations. There's no doubt. You look at like the Air Max 90, the Air Max 1, just to name a few, the Air Force. You've got some of the probably the biggest collaborations I could ever think for. I know that I saw one of you had a Para Air Max 1 sort of like collaboration. Is it because you think that maybe they produce so many collaborations at the moment that they can't expand their creativity onto certain aspects of the shoe because they're just doing so much? Or
for me, I'd say the smaller brands that we talked about earlier, their collaborations are more random, aren't they? Oh, there was that Rusen with that mining company quite recently.
Yeah, the Power. The
one that you really like.
The Power, yeah.
And that other Saucony one with that local Bagnac company.
I guess it's strange with someone like Ruse because I think although it seems very random, their non-store collaborations are normally a company that's based in Germany, so it's sort of like a very sort of like family felt, sort of like keep it close to your heart sort of thing.
Yeah. But it's like it's unexpected. It's like it's more sort of a creative influence behind it. So I don't know if that for us is because we see stuff with Nike, like so far in advance, like for example Travis Scott and stuff. We see that like maybe 6-12 months in advance, and then we kind of get used to it and get familiar with it. Whereas things like Saucony did, or I don't know, even ASICS sometimes, it's like a few days before it's released. It's kind of more of a shock factor.
Yeah. So, Joel, the question to you, in regards to sort of like pricing, you normally find obviously a smaller brand will have a higher price point because you're paying for materials of sorts. Looking at a Nike collab may well be more of a sought after hyped product. What would you go for if you said you had, I don't know, 250 quid? Would you spend that money on a beautiful looking Dora or something like that, or would you buy a couple of pairs of Nikes, or where would you go with it?
I think it kind of comes down to it's always going to be individual pairs. Everyone in the group knows me for being a cheap ass and always looking for a promo code. It's always going to depend. I think more and more, maybe a thing with age, I would prefer to buy something that's handmade that costs maybe a little bit more, as opposed to just buying like a run-of-the-mill Nike that's like Chinese factory-made kind of thing. So yeah, definitely the direction I'm going in. You mentioned earlier about Mitesh dipping his toe in the Jordan pool. I'm kind of feeling like I'm the other way around, and a lot of it's because of knowledge from you guys, kind of getting to know runners and different brands more. So it's kind of piqued my interest, I would say.
Yeah, and I think Mitesh brought up a good point earlier on. I think you both did about, I think Jordan and Nike, I think the collaborations have always been there, but now they're maybe learning maybe from other brands. I don't know the direction of some of them are going. I'm just trying to think of some. And Mitesh, you talked about like the Travis Jordan 1s, the highs, how, you know, I thought it was nice that it had a nice suede on it, the backward swoosh. Anybody can really do that. I think you did a good job on something to say like the Air Force 1, like loads of different materials, different patterns, shit like that. But then you also had like the Jordan box with like the see-through paneling on with its own paper. You had that like gave them that creative direction of like putting that like sock thing on the front of it. So I think it's like evolving.
Yeah, they seem to be putting more thought into it.
Yeah, I guess it's a hard one because I think I sent a message out earlier on. I mean, I was looking at like collaborations going back to like 2006. Before then, like talking about the Alive stuff. Like, how do we sum up all this collaboration talk in like one video? It's just so much to talk about.
Yeah.
Especially like to put a timeline together of like who was doing it well back then and who's doing it well now. I think if I was to say like looking at a collaboration, if I was buying a shoe specific for a collaboration, I think I want there to be like a story.
That's where it means the most, isn't it? When there's a story and you can see that story coming from like an idea into the shoe, and not just the shoe, like the accessories, the box and stuff like that. And it's especially good when it's like not random, but like something you couldn't picture in a shoe, and it comes into a shoe, and then like, oh look. At first glance, you might not notice it, but then you look at it and you're like, oh wow.
Yeah. And I think it's important to know, like Joel, you said that like you learned from being in the group with me and Mitesh, like trying to. I mean, that's one of the things that I sort of expressed. I think when I started posting those like brews and stuff like that. I think when I started posting like the Adam and Eve collabs and stuff like that, when I got both of them, and you were probably more open to. I think it was the World Cup or brews that. Do you remember them? We used to talk about them.
The playmakers.
Yeah, that's the ones. The World Cup ones. So yeah, I guess like, you know, you're more open to paying that a little bit more for better materials, creative process, all that sort of thing. Yeah.
I think like people can tell you that the quality is this, that, or the other, but I think a lot of the time, until you get the product in your hand, you don't really going to appreciate how better some of these smaller brands are, whether it's the detail of the collab or just like the quality of the suede or whatever. The first like non-Nike Adidas type collab that I remember getting was the Lyra N9000 Diadora with Concepts, and I remember like basically taking it out the box, and basically my expectation here as a Nike guy, my expectations now shot through the roof. Completely different product, just so much better.
So you're basically a snob now.
Completely.
You're one of those Diadora enthusiasts. Wicked. So I don't. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up around sort of like what do you look for?
Just in general about collaborations, the quality seems to be better, as in like the quality of materials and different materials, I guess.
Yeah.
Compared
I find
to
it
GL.
strange because I think the forefront of a collaborator in regards to materials, colours, story, packaging. I think the front runners for me are like Diadora, Ruse, maybe Asics to an extent. I'm not sure.
Not as much so as the others.
Not as much so. Sort of like they'd sit under that.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. Probably the Asics probably sit with like Reebok and stuff like that. I think in regards to those stores, you've got those top fronts, and I don't think, because they're a lot smaller in sort of like in regards to numbers and size of the company, I don't think a lot of people like Joel, yourself, coming from a background of not knowing them before, I don't think a lot of other people know about the quality you get from those projects.
Yeah, I was going to say actually, like an example, I think the some of the collaborations are the kind of thing that opens your mind to a completely new brand, silhouette, whatever the case is. I remember asking Mitesh, there'd be a few Hummel collab. I remember asking Mitesh, what's the name of this silhouette? And this is a shoe that I've been like stalking online, looking at all of the kind of videos coming out, and 100% I'm going to go for this guy. And I actually didn't even know the name of the silhouette. So it kind of shows you they have a bit more, they're a bit more in the limelight. It's just easier to kind of come in and understand what the new silhouettes are.
And I was just gonna go back to that bit about talking about like the big collaborators. In my eyes, I didn't put Saucony up there because I generally find that the quality of the product isn't as good.
Yeah. Yeah, miss, isn't it?
Yeah, I had a pair of the Premier, and I mean the packaging was. I haven't got the shoe anymore because it fell apart, but that's what I'm saying. It's the Premier collab. I think the model was the Freedom Runner. It was the orange. It was based around the waterproof match. But honestly, like the design and everything was amazing, but the eyelets like came off after like 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've had like the Cushwackers, and they were lovely, but they had a big defect on one side panel. Like the suede was completely like had blown out.
Yeah, I've seen glue marks a lot on Saucony that I've had. Do you remember a pair called the Summer Nights? It wasn't as like a collaboration pair, but it was quite hyped up, and then the whole toe was like reflective 3M. But then when I got them, the whole of the toe had like glue marks all over the side.
Oh, really?
And it completely ruined the 3M. It was horrible. Yeah. That's kind of stuck with me, that experience. But,
I know, it sticks with you, doesn't it? Not quite
Yeah.
literally with glue marks. I wasn't
Yeah.
going with
Yeah.
that. No pun intended. Cool. So, we've talked about what we look for in collaborations, a little bit about sort of like our history with collaborations. Who does it well? Now, we're talking stores. We're also talking collaborators as well that don't necessarily have to have a store background or whatever, but who in your eyes does it well?
Yeah, I'll go first. I mentioned the Hummels earlier. I think it's like a well-known line that a few never really does a bad collab. So I would say whenever I hear the word used in the context of sneakers, they're the first thing I think of, because they've done it so well, so like continuously for years.
So which releases? Anything in particular?
Well, I'm thinking that the more recent Hummels, see that both of the pairs are Kois. What else do you have? Mine's going a bit blank now.
Highly addictive.
Yeah, the highly addictives, the Master Formula. I went completely blank there. But yeah, they've all been amazing and all very different as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they also had one of my favourites is the forest bits from Ruse that they brought out. They had I forget what the names are. Can you guys recall?
Mighty Forest, was it?
Yeah, but you had the Friends and Family, which was a black version of it in leather.
Yeah.
Or a more limited run, maybe not Friends and Family, but they had a more limited run.
Yeah.
Any other sort of shops that stick out for you there? I know you're like favourite of Packers as well over there.
For me, it's Haddon. Just because like they do like really, really like random ideas. Like the Diodora Saturday specials and Transit 2.
Yeah.
Based on like trains.
Yeah, cool. I like that.
And they just have like a signature sort of colour set that they go with.
Have you got one of them or both of them?
Both. I've got a Saturday special and Transit 2, yeah. I've got a few ASICs collabs of those as well.
What other? So is that sort of like when it sticks out to you? Any other like stores that you can think of that you enjoy?
As you said, Packer with the purple tapes. ASICs, they've got like Dirty Buck, the recent Diodora they did. What was it called? I can't remember what it's called. It's just Foot Patrol do a good collaboration as well.
Yeah, I'm just a bit sore about the whole sort of JD Sports customer service.
Yeah.
And it puts all that as a bad taste, and I know it shouldn't, because some of my favourite collaborations have come from Foot Patrol.
Yeah.
But there's that, when you have that bad experience with, said glue stains earlier, it's the same with customer service as well, sort of. And I don't directly like to link it to that shop because I know the guys that work there don't have that connection to the larger overall arching sort of like company. But
yeah.
One that will be interesting to see is Union in Los Angeles. The infamous storm that they dropped a few years ago, which sent everyone crazy. There have been rumours and talk about a 4 coming out this year. I don't know whether the current climate in countries going to stop that and slow that down, but I have heard a few chaps on like Facebook groups calling them instant cops already, and there are no pictures out. Shows you how big the infrastructure is.
So Union, haven't got a massive knowledge background in that store, but I posted a couple pairs of Superstars earlier on that they'd done a while back. So they've been doing it for a time. It's just that the Jordan, I guess, of this sort of like era blew it out of proportion. But they've been doing it for ages anyway, haven't they? They've been like doing it since God knows, like the early 2000s sort of thing. So
yeah, I think it was just a bit more under the radar back then.
Yeah, it's like saying those Superstars, the purple snakeskin, I think, and the brown suede. The brown suede, I found like the Union pair for like 70 quid on Go earlier, And I was just like, that's nuts compared to, it's a classic colorway. It's probably, it's not in the mix at the moment because people, non-hype people, don't really care about it at the moment but I guess there's always that with them. I mean, I picked out a couple Soulbox with like Hikmet, like the orange and the mints. You got the finals, the greens as well, and the Nazirides, I think it was. That's more of like, I think, materials and colour for me. Like Hikmet always like picks out like the nicest colours that you could possibly have, and I think you see that with like within the Somra brand. He always picks out like beautiful colorways, even to the point of when they were doing the Ultra Boost. He picked that like nice shade of grey with like an ultra red sole unit and made it pop. Another one I was going to talk about was Kith and Ronnie Fig. Another one that has great colorways. It's probably sort of like, it's weird because he uses quite big brands, but he uses such a variety of brands. He goes from like Nike to Asics to Clark's Originals, and he has that whole sort of like array of materials that all of these brands use. So you always think of like great quality when it comes to his sort of like collaborations. And another one that I thought that one of you guys would have picked out was like Pata and their history with Para as well.
Yeah, I was going to say Para as another one.
What would you go with sort of like the Pata and the Para sort of like influence from like Amsterdam? Is that sort of like down to like materials or colours? Because the Para is very known well for its sort of like white, blue, pink, sort of like reds and stuff.
It's the colours, it's the artiness of it, I guess. It's quite different to normal sneaker collaborations.
Yeah, it's a very distinctive style of art. The specific shades of red and pink that, I mean, I'm on that website probably at least twice a week, and almost everything they have on them, that's cool. If I had infinite money, I'd be picking up almost everything they do. I think it's just really distinctive styling.
Yeah, I'd love some of his sort of like art to go in my little office. It's quite obscure. That sort of like, I don't know, the sort of the background of Amsterdam and stuff like that. It sort of like comes out to me as that's sort of like an obscure sort of like thing that would come from that city. Going back to like Pata, they've always had like a very strong sort of like Nike presence. They've done a lot of like Vans as well. I'm trying to think who else that they've done it with. Mizuno they've recently had.
Asics have done a few.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, we could go on about shops for ages, and we've been doing our weekly sort of like posts on who's your favourite collab or silhouette or model from certain collaborations. You've obviously got your Atmos as well. You've got your Packers, your 24 Kilts. I mean, we could go on and on and on. I mean, Undefeated have always had a big presence in the collaborations through Nike and Adidas. Stussy and Bape as well, like Bape more back in the day sort of like thing. I think that was more of like an Adidas thing to me, with the Superstars, but then they more recently did the Ultra Boosts.
Aimley and Dora are good. They've done like interesting colours, haven't they, with New Balance? Aimley and Dora.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So let's talk about them for a little minute. Joel, you've got any sort of like interest in those? I know Luke's a massive sort of like ambassador of the brand with their I try to, they've got like the thing that I like about that brand is that they've got their very sort of like their own color palette almost. It sort of almost reminds me of Kith a little bit. What about you, Mitesh? Have you thought about buying any of it? Or
I have, yeah, but resale prices are like ridiculous. Todd Schneider as well with New Balance is like some of their stuff recently has been amazing, and it goes on sale on the Todd Schneider website, but the it's just the customs fees that put me off it, and then resale
J.
prices.
Crew have had a massive presence with New Balance as well, like having their own colorways.
Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it, with like New Balance recently, especially with the Joe Fresh goods like the Chicago.
Yeah.
So you got them. who you just mentioned. You've got is it W Taps? I can't even.
Yeah, we call it W Taps. Yeah.
Yeah, I call it. The 992 specifically that everybody thinks looks like a Balenciaga Triple S, but it doesn't actually in real life.
Nah.
It just looks like that in the pictures.
It's like a nicer version, how it should be.
It's crazy because they limit they do it quite well because they limit obviously the amount of product they have to keep that sort of hype going almost. It is quite a lot of hype that sells that brand though at the moment with the New Balance.
Yeah, it's like they're going a bit more. I think the brands they're collaborating with, they're going for more like a fashion sort of vibe.
Yeah. Also, with sort of like when you're looking back at like the New Balance stuff, there was probably brands sort of like S&S and Sneaker Freaker that we haven't introduced as well. So, but I'm sure we'll bring some of that up in a bit. Like I say, this is going to be fucking loose anyway. So,
I'm my next back in. What do you guys think about something like Supreme taking a white Air Force One and just putting a tiny little logo on the heel?
What do I think?
Yeah, I think I know what's coming.
Well, it's crazy because I'm gonna bring up when we're talking about some of our favourite like collaborations that we've had in a long time.
Oh no!
I don't think I ever posted that. I might.
No, you didn't. I'd have remembered that, definitely.
I think you knew as I got up where I was going.
Yeah.
I've included one of their collaborations in one of my favourite collaborations of all time, but it's hard to think about when you look at it.
These or the Blazers?
It was the Air Force. I'll talk about it in a bit. I don't want to give away. We'll wait until we get there. But on your question, so your question around Supreme taking an all-white Air Force One? Do I think it's lazy? Yes. Am I surprised? No. They will put their name on absolutely anything, and they don't care who it upsets. I think it would have been nice, and I'm just going to go back to this shoe. You've got some Supreme banding, obviously, on the aglet. You've got a Supreme on the label on the toe box. You've got the imprint there, and you've got the laces. But, you know, I think you said we were talking about the Stussy Air Force Ones that were just leaked. About how I think it would have been nice if they had at least put like an imprint of Supreme across where you normally get the air there. That would have been nice. But like I say, from somebody that is sort of like I've bought into the brand, I'm not surprised. That shoe was probably 10, 15 quid more than the original. If it was like, so I think you buy an all white, so the sort of like the triple white cocaine Air Force Ones go for what, £85 retail. That was 100 quid all in, £95 before packaging, postage and packaging. If they had sold that for 150 quid, I would have been like, no way.
One of the differences to me is that no one really pays retail on the regular one because they're going to be on sale and they're just sitting there on shelves. So I think the RRP difference is minimal, but actually being able to just walk into a store and get 20% off versus having to sit there on a website refreshing and pop in the second type of thing.
Yeah, I'm splitting different on it because, you know, Supreme's been around for since I was a kid. They've put the work in. Is it lazy? Yeah, but am I surprised? No. Like I said, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a collaboration. It's just like two mates chucking something on to something. I don't know. It's weird. I wouldn't ever put it. We're talking about I sound really bad now because I'm talking about fucking quality about 2 minutes ago, and now I'm talking about an Air Force One when they put it down. Like contradicting myself. I wouldn't class it as a collaboration. Although it is, I wouldn't put it in the same scale ever as a Diadora collaboration or something like that.
What made you want it? Just out of interest.
Probably the hype got it into me. But like I say, I've bought into the brand. Like I've got so many of their t-shirts. I don't buy all of those accessories or anything like that. Can't be asked with that. Like I'm not spending 50 quid on a poncho. Like I know it was like 6 quid or something like that. I know the prices. I have looked. I don't know. I mean, I like Air Force Ones. They're one of my favourite silhouettes, especially with collaborations and the bespoke program. I don't know, man. You can't go wrong. Like, if I hadn't have told you that was, and I'm sure many people won't know what that is if they're not really into, they will just think that that's an all-white Air Force One, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, there's nothing wrong. I know, Joel, that you're not the biggest fan of Air Force One. But coming from a guy that likes it, there's nothing wrong with having an all-white pair. I don't know. It is what it is. I'm not like, I don't know. I'm indifferent about it. I'm not fussed by it, but I got it.
And I'd say the SB lows they did, the ones with the elephant print and the red pattern on there. That's a pair. I mean, I wouldn't go massively out of my way to get them, but I think they're really nice.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about like collaborations that you maybe don't own. We'll briefly touch on, you know, why we don't own them. For me, it's probably slightly different to you guys. Not sure, Joel, you just said something a bit about money. Mine's, I don't have to own every pair. I quite like the thought of having a pair to an extent. But Joel, give us like a couple, I don't know, from your top sort of like, I know you've got 10 down there, but just give us a couple of like collaborations you really appreciate.
Yeah, we've spoken on this one a lot, but the Just On 2s are a big one on my list. And that is something I will own this year. Just need to find the right one, find the right pair.
Colorway though, right?
Yeah, just the other. I'm not a massive fan of either of the other two colorways, but that beach pair, and I think it is for me that shows just how good it was. In that I don't own any other twos. It makes them sound really bad, but I've never seen a two before and felt compelled to rush out and get them. But those Just On pairs is something in the
leather sort of
wilted leather style. It just looks really good. So I'd say that those orange Kois are really high up on my list. The Joel Light 3s.
Let's go back to those orange Kois. You prefer them, as I do, slander over the red.
So
just the colourway?
I've got one for each side of the fence on that one. I prefer the shape of the OGs, but I actually prefer the orange. I prefer the colouring on the orange ones. I do prefer the shape of the red, of the original red pair.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. But yeah, keep on going.
That's also because I have so many other red shoes and not very many orange shoes, so I think it just adds a bit more to the collection.
And with your iron, would you get to the original shape at some point in your lifetime?
To cop the red pair?
No, with your iron.
Oh no.
Would you be able to shape them to the original at some point in your life?
To be honest, I'm going to need it, but no, water wouldn't be going anywhere near that, Suede. What else? So I've the East Coast Ronnie Flag Pack is another two pairs that again not kind of in a rush to go out and buy, but I have a lot of admiration and really like both of the colorways. So that's the Knicks and the Miami pairs, which are like 3s. Those two are kind of quite big up on my list as well.
Cool. What about yourself, Mitesh? Where would you go with some of the stuff that you haven't got?
I guess I've been fortunate in a way in that I've been able to get the pairs that I really, really wanted. Really, really, really wanted. But there's some pairs that wouldn't be prepared to spend the money on.
So going back to that point quickly before you list them in.
Yeah.
Would you say that it is money stopping you getting them, or do you have to have them?
No, it's a bit of both. It's money and it's also like I enjoy collecting pairs and like doing it gradually, or maybe knowing that I'll never have everything I want because I don't know, it's part of like a passion, isn't it? So you don't need to have everything.
Yeah.
Once you get everything off the old hit list, then it's kind of like, where do you go from there? Do you get bored? Do you stop collecting? I don't know.
I agree. I mean, I kind of label it fairly flippantly, as in it's just all about money. In reality, if you gave me enough money to get everything on my list, I wouldn't go and buy them all tomorrow. You would still, enjoy the hunt and take your time about it. So yeah, I agree on that front.
So what pairs, outstand maybe out of your reach?
So for me, so the top one is Ronnie Feig pair, the Super Greens Gel Light 3s.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a pair that's it's understated, flash of green. I don't know, it's just something about it.
I know, yeah.
Classic, completely classic.
What are they called? The Super Greens?
Yeah.
Did they re-release them, or am I right in saying? I can't remember.
I think they did, yeah.
They did, because they did a 3-point. Is it the 3.1 with the all black?
Not the Super Greens, no.
But it's not called the Super Green, but it was part of a pack, wasn't it? A release where you had, it was an all black. This one, 2 seconds.
As far as I know, Super 3.1s were, there was a salmon pair, the militia pair.
No, they brought out Super Greens as well. There was 500.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Them one.
Yeah, them. Yeah.
And they go, and I nearly picked up a pair of them, but I'm so indifferent on that Soul unit. I think on StockX and a size UK 9 go for like 150 quid, and there was only like 500 pairs of them or something. I can't remember, but
okay.
But yeah, so you've got them. You've got the Super Greens. Anything else?
The OG Koi are like really high up on my list. I'd say they're probably second as well.
How much are they going for? And we're not talking about prices really, but what do they go for these days?
Probably between 500 and 600 quid. Yeah.
And you've got the orange already?
Yeah, orange over there.
Does that come into the factor of being like, do I need them?
No.
Well, fucking put me down.
Nah, I wanted the OG like since forever because of the story of how they came to be, sort of thing. It was like the first collaboration that a few sort of did with anyone.
Yeah, cool.
And they were a small store when they did them. So I don't know if you've seen the story, but they basically, before approaching ASICS, they kind of handmade their own version of it.
Oh no, I haven't.
The Gel 3, yeah, and kind of like presented it to him.
Oh, well.
And that's kind of where they took off from, really. So it's just at the time it's like a really different shoe from everything else.
Yeah.
So
well, that's a nice little fact. I like that.
Yeah.
I'll quickly go into mine just to name a few because I know that we got to tick on. Mine's the lobster collection. So from like 2008 to 2018, I'm including everything in that. That's like my dream collection. I think I put it all together and I would need like 30 grand to get them all, like ridiculous, including the Kyries.
Wow.
The OG Atmos Ducks. They're in my reach. It's just something for a decent price. There's always that. Do I need to want to pay out to repair it a little bit? Repainting and all that. This is what I was going back to earlier on, saying that sometimes I quite like the thought of having them. It's almost keeps me in it, like that want. Like I'll go to an event or see somebody wearing them and I think they look absolutely banging, but that's almost sometimes enough for me to like appreciate the shoe.
If you had them, would you actually wear them? Something like that.
It's another factor.
Yeah,
I don't know. I couldn't tell you that.
Yeah.
Purple Tapes is another. I love the story behind it. Like hip hop massively like influences my life. Like that shoe like sums up hip hop. Great collaboration. Great story about how they released it. with like the ice cream truck and all of that sort of thing. And I've seen a few jackets going around. I'd love that one day, but who knows? And just a couple more. The original Pigeon Dunk has always been one of those shoes that keeps me in. The sort of like probably one of the original shoes that ever got me into it, sort of really. Like the whole story about it. I love that whole story about the release of it and how it went absolutely crazy. And I'm sure that's in everybody's books as well. That everybody can appreciate it. And I really enjoy it because I haven't always loved Air Force Ones, but I have in the last couple of years. But the Supreme camo stuff that they did. So I think they did an olive pair, a black pair, and a camo pair. And that's something that I would have loved them to do with the new one. But I'm sure that their like partnership will last forever anyway. So you'll get every model, every colour that's ever existed at some point. But yeah, cool. So that's just a few of mine. There's a couple of, even like I was going to mention the Sneaker Bass Sin City into Explicits as well. It's probably one of my favourite ever sort of like Bruise collaborations they've ever done. But yeah, that's just to name a few. Are there any other points before we start talking about our shoes? Is there any specific sort of like silhouettes you think work well with collaborations? Anything? I mean, we haven't even mentioned the recent hype of Virgil and Jerry and Kanye. I almost don't want to talk about it because it's a whole different story altogether. I mean, something that I was going to mention are some of the silhouettes, some of the classics that maybe I haven't mentioned in shoes that I've got or would have liked to have had. The Air Max 90 is a massive shoe that's had great collaborations over the years, as well as the Air Max 1. And the Air Force 1 at the end of last year had a lot of great releases as well. Joel, I know you hate shiny silk with patterns on it. Are there any specific silhouettes from companies that you think work well that have had releases? I know the Gel Light 3, obviously the anniversary that we've got at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say Gel Light 3 always stands its hand well. Air Max 1s are big in the collab side of things from the Air Max side. Just trying to think through. My other point was going to be the fact that we'd talked 45 minutes and no one had said the term Off-White, which is, there's probably enough material there for another video, I'd say.
It's difficult because we're very sort of like pro runner brand. It's hard to talk about those brands together in my eyes, or those silhouettes together sometimes, those collaborations. I wouldn't ever say I want to say someone like Hikmet doing his Sonra collaborations with Jerry Lorenzo, or Off-White Virgil doing a J1 sort of thing.
Yeah, it's hard to compare, isn't it? It's like the classic versus the contemporary sort of here and now sort of thing.
Should have just called the video that and gone with that subject, man. Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about some of our favourite pairs that we have. A little bit about them, and why you like them so much. Really, let's just pick a couple. I'll go with Joel. You go first, man.
Yeah, so I've got one of my favourite. It's always threes with me. I don't know. I've got one of my favourites.
Ooh.
If you can see that, the Dornbecker 3.
You get any more detail on that?
So, yeah, I don't know if you can see it. It's supposed to be a bit more silvery. It's better on the inside. You see there?
Yeah.
The lad's name. I mean, so the Dornbecker stuff, just for anyone that doesn't know, is like the hospital collaboration that that Jordan Brand, or Nike and Jordan Brand does with the Children's Hospital, essentially to like raise funds for treatments for new kind of illnesses, to kind of help there. So they do a bunch across a load of different Jordan and Brand silhouettes, and they're always massively hyped. It's one of, again, another content for another video, but there's always that ongoing thing of people reselling shoes that are there for charity, and kind of these fall into that bracket where, you know, morals are questionable, but this, you know, being a guy who loves threes, this was always going to be a pair that I was going to grab. Yeah, it's really difficult to see, but you've basically got diamonds all over the upper. And then he spelt his, if I hold it there, maybe you can see it. He's basically spelt his first name, Cole, into the diamonds using different lines. You guys can see that? I don't know.
Yeah, that's crazy. Is that elephant print as well? On the...
Yeah, and then you've got red on red elephant print there.
That's mad.
Yeah, and then on the back here, so under the back of the pull tabs, so he's put an ice cream on here, and then there is spaghetti on the other side. So you imagine you set an 11-year-old to design a shoe. My favourite foods are going on the back. So he's like hidden his favourite foods behind the tabs at the back, which is another really nice hit. And then it says courage on the inside. Yeah, courage and strength, which are like two of the kind of attributes, and so you have to deal with that kind of illness. So yeah, they're all over. There's a like kind of 3M type hit on the bottom here, which you can't see in this lighting, but yeah, these are, you know, people always say if you had to sell your collection, what would go last? I think these and the white cement would probably be those two pairs.
I love the design about that, and the fact that you can think about the story about how that design came together. You can imagine sort of like a Jordan Nike designer with, is it Cole, did you say?
Cole, yeah.
Yeah,
Cole.
Sitting down and like designing that shoe. It must be like so much fun.
Yeah. It's what that series is all about, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's your big gun.
Yeah. Shall I keep going, or do you wanna kind of go back and forth?
No, you keep on going, man. You take a couple.
So another one. I won't do another three. Obvious choice. But the Union ones. So this was like, I mean, there's a bunch of detail in here, but kind of looking up close, it's basically the metallic greys and the black toes stitched together along that line. So two different shoes kind of stitched at the seam, where taking the top half of one OG color, bottom half of another, and kind of clumped them together. And there's a bunch of other stuff like the deliberately kind of vintage looking outsole. This is how the heel of a Jordan 1 gets after 20 years. So they've deliberately made it look all scuffy and 20 years old. Put their little UNLA tag in here. And also put a hang tag on a 1, which is never seen normally. And then it says Union across the bottom of the hang tag. They also, you can see here, split on the tongue. So again, with the stitching vibe going on, again, they've taken the two shoes and stitched them together. And the OG laces are black at the bottom and then change to cream as they get to the top. So yeah, these ones were they just caused such a stir at back end of 2018.
Your favourite out of the two colourways?
Yeah. I think this one was much easier, like I say, quote unquote, easier to get. They were both absolute myth, but the blue pair was much more difficult. I think they were US only. They might have even been Los Angeles only. Much more difficult to get, but I way prefer those, and I don't feel compelled at all to go and try and find the other ones, to be honest.
Yeah, cool.
And then, so we mentioned, is it Pilates? I always say
Pilates, yeah.
Not really sure. These guys here was a pair that I, again, going back to kind of relationship with you guys in the group, this is something I would never have normally gone after, but saw a few pictures and, you know, just blown away with it. And it was one of the pairs where I saw it in hand, and it, again, I made the kind of change the expectation level type thing earlier. This was one of those pairs that really did that for me. So, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff in here. Respect over hate, insole,
yeah.
And then the mighty crown. You've got crown at the bottom of the laces, which is actual real, that's real metal, not like a plastic jobby. Same thing on the end of the laces. And I mean, the quality of the suedes and the leather is not going to come through on screen, but it's just epic. Really, really good. Really good.
Wicked.
And like with all things, you know, completely bespoke box, completely specific to that pair, which is one thing I really love. You know, we said about the quality being better on the collabs. Is also when they come with their own box. I think it's a bit special. And then one other one I'll just really quickly show, the Bio Beige 3. So another, this is the Justin Timberlake one, super premium brown shoe, and you've got the Tinker logo.
They were quite, they sold out straight away, but then seem to restock a little bit later down the line, sort of thing?
There were a few really small sizes, but they generally sold out straight away. And again, the camera is going to do the materials a disservice, but this is basically runner material on a Jordan, which is why I love these so much. This is comparable to the runner collabs. It's probably the only Jordan I have that is.
And how do you feel about the tick on the side of it?
I really love it. I actually really, really like it. A few people have asked me that, knowing that it's my favorite silhouette. I kind of look at that and think, like, maybe it should have been there the whole time. I don't know. Kind of breaks up an otherwise like slightly monotonous kind of flat upper.
I personally prefer it without, because I like the minimalistic of the whole silhouette. But
yeah.
Cool, wicked. What about you then, Mitesh? What are you bringing?
Okay. First one's kind of predictable. And I talk about this pair quite a lot, so.
I know which shoe it's going to be straight away.
So these Castellas.
Yeah.
Just because the quality is amazing, and we talk about like random
Can you hold it up a bit, because I've only got the bottom part of your screen a little bit.
Tiny better.
Yeah, much better, man.
Okay. Yeah.
Although I can't see your forehead, but that's we only want to see the shoe anyway, so.
Yeah, I love these just because of what we were talking about before, collaborations. It's just kind of something you wouldn't expect. The story's about Castellas. So it's this like festival in Barcelona in Spain.
Yeah.
Where it's like a competition to make human towers. And then just the way they've made it into a shoe, it's just not mad. I
think it's definitely a shoe you've got to be committed to in regards to finance.
Yeah.
I see all these guys that post up like 3 or 4 pairs of them in a row, and I'm just like, don't know how you do it, but
anyway, obviously the quality did or second to none.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Like now you talk about that, I didn't mention that as one of those sort of like all-time shoes earlier on when we were going about it. I would have mentioned that shoe had I thought about it earlier, but yeah, beautiful.
Nah, saved it. Next. A pair I like, but I don't wear a lot because they're quite delicate.
Oh, wow.
Mr. Lynx. Yeah. I've not worn them very much. I've worn them a few times, but just they're obviously in collaboration with Leica Studios.
Yeah.
Can
you give us a close up on like the tongue? Because I know the Friends and Family has that like furry tongue, doesn't it?
Was there a Friends and Family?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's got like, I think the only difference is the tongue is like his fur.
Okay. I remember there being a Friends and Family. I thought it was just the box that was different.
No, it's the tongue is like his fur. It's weird looking thing. That's why I prefer the GR release, if you can call it a GR, because that was incredibly hard to.
Yeah.
And
really
over here in Europe, they only released via the sneakers app, right?
Yeah. I love these because they're for Nike. They're really, really bespoke. The materials, they're like cord and tweed. They've got like a 3D printed leather across the midsole, cork insole, and it's based on like a character who's like is it like a orangutan or something that wants to be a human? Yeah.
He's a Yeti. Orangutan.
It's just a mad idea for a shoe, and things like these.
I love that.
These little buttons here.
Disrespected him.
Yeah. These little things like the little buttons. It's just, I don't know. It's just mad, but it works.
Yeah, I love it.
And obviously gun bottoms.
Do you think it's a Marmite shoe? Do you think people like don't like it?
Yeah, it's either you love it or you hate it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Third one will be These
There
orange
you go.
boys.
Joel's getting closer to the screen. You can almost taste them.
Only because I've always wanted the OGs. And like you said before, or alluded to, the quality of these orange ones seems a lot better than the OGs.
What's the
I'm not
story
a
about?
massive orange.
What's the story behind you getting them? Were they
Not really a story behind me getting them. As in, I've been after the OGs for a while in like a decent quality for like a decentish price. But obviously, when these re-released, thought about going down to a few and doing one of their legendary campouts.
Yeah.
But they kind of announced it at quite a short notice, only for like a few days before.
Yeah, I think they did the same with the Master Formula as well.
Yeah, so it was kind of like 5 days before, and then you have to camp out for 3 days, even though their campouts are kind of the ones where you have to sort of just be, what's it called, like a roll call sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the quality is decent. Obviously, it's based on a fish.
Yeah, let's get a picture of that Soul unit. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, I've cleaned it every time. Well, it's still a bit dirty, but cleaned it every time I've worn it, just to maintain it. And then that bit as well.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And then the bits of wood in the eyelets, which is pretty awesome as well.
Okay.
No,
can you see that in there?
Yeah.
Cool.
That's awesome. And they came with there was a special edition box of one of them, wasn't it?
Yeah, one of those, yeah. They came with, obviously, the in-store ones a lot of them came with the wooden box, didn't they? Like the bento box with like 2 layers in.
Yeah.
That would have been amazing, but not to be. Anyway, over to you.
Wicked. So, I know you got 2 others there quickly. What were they that you've got? You got the Paras and the...
Yeah, Paras and the Ruse, the bubblegum pair, which are like a community.
That's awesome.
Community
I thought, didn't they all come in? I thought they all came in the capsule. Or is that another?
No, that was only the pre-release ones that came with them.
Oh, right.
I missed them, so that was the in-store release version.
I know that. Joel, what are we doing for time, my friend?
5. I can jump up if you're not through.
No. I'll quickly go. I talked about them on the last video. The Ruse with Glory Hole. Like I said, one of my favourite ever sort of Rue collaborations was the Sneaker Bass, Too Explicit, and Sin City. And I almost feel that these are on the sort of same level, but I think it's that sort of like background of the city of where they come from. They've got like that dark European city background to them within the collaboration. As you can tell by the Johnny and the box and the everything else that come through. I won't go through everything else that came through with again, like the bullet. But most Ruse, and I thought about getting the Legend of 34s recently. Even so that those power ones, I know that they weren't your favourites, but I just think they've got a great story. Like you buy one pair and you just know that you've got a great quality shoe. My next one, in regards to, I've never had a lot of Dunks, but the lobsters, the purple lobsters, and I remember buying these on the second, like on resale basically. I remember getting them for 200 quid. I think the retail was 110, 115. I bought them like the next day for 200 quid on eBay, and now they're going for ridiculous, like 500 quid now, which is crazy. Because not a lot of people really talk about them in regards to collaborations. I know Dunks are massive at the moment anyway. But purple being my favourite colour on any combination of shoe. Just the whole story between sort of like concepts with all the previous lobsters. Also Kyrie and how his involvement has been with the lobsters that he's had. And also his like sort of like collaborations with concepts as well. Just love that inlay, the speckled sort of like suede that you get
I didn't notice that.
The oil finish as well on the swoosh. Yeah, you can see sort of like the
speckle. Is it like it's almost like a splash mark, right?
Yeah. So it's got them on all of them. If you look at all the lobster series, they've all got that same sort of feature. But yeah, another one. I got the standard box edition. The pre-release or the store release had a lobster box, which basically had that SB box in anyway, so it wasn't anything crazy.
Yeah.
More recent of pairs that I really love are the Aminier, the highs. I'm after the lows at the moment, but they're going for a ridiculous amount. I've sort of like got an obsession, as you know, with Air Force One bespokes and IDs. And this shoe to me, and you can see sort of like the oil sort of 3M aspect.
They look like a bespoke, don't they?
Yeah. So you've got like a suede at the front. You've got a horsehair or pony hair on the front there. You've got a leather. You've got a really hairy suede there. The sole unit, I think the only other shoe that I'd seen this on is the Cause, where the sole unit's got suede on it as well. And then just the black. But I'm really after the lows at the moment. It's just waiting for that right price. When do you bite the bullet sort of thing. But and also sort of like the really, really nice leather sort of qualities. This is one of the ones that I'm sort of like talking about in regards to last year was quite a strong finish for the Air Force One with the clot, with the Dragon. I forget which one it is. The G Dragon, one that you rubbed off. You had the clots as well. You had the blues, the blacks, and the sort of rose gold as well. And just the quality of them doing it well. But yeah, I love that shoe.
They were numbered as well, weren't they? Which is rare for Nike.
What was that? Sorry.
They were numbered as well, weren't they? Those.
Yes. So that is number 5. I think it was slightly less. It was 300 less, I think, of the lows, but this is 5,352 out of 5,914. So, which is crazy. And I think that shoe, or at least the low, will blow up when the Air Force One comes back around again.
Yeah.
I mean, that shoe never dies, but I think there'd be a massive sort of like surge at one point.
Yeah.
And then going back to the shoe that got me into it in regards to collaborations is the Ventilator with the this is the Street Meat. You can see it in there with extra butter. I wanted to talk about, I know we didn't really go into it, it's like points of time of when you think that collaborations were like the best. And this is 2015 with the anniversary.
Yeah.
And I just think that this shoe is absolutely timeless. They did a great. So on one of the shoes that it doesn't have on the other is that you see like the speckled cheese on it. You can't really see it back there, but it doesn't have it on both of them. I just think it had a great story, had a great release with extra butter, with like the sort of like fast food vans and stuff like that. They made a real effort to release the shoe. You've got with the Reebok there, you've got the E and the B slightly different for the extra butter. It's just stories and stuff like that, as we were talking about at the beginning about, what the collaborations mean to us.
Yeah.
And that's one of the shoes for me that sums it up really. Classic silhouette, great story, good materials, good colorway, made an effort. I think they came with a special box, but I got that about a year later via Depop, I think. So, but yeah, I think I'll leave it there. There's obviously other stuff that we've got that we haven't talked about that we could talk about for ages and ages. But we've already been talking for an hour and 15 minutes, so.
Oh boy, wow.
That's crazy. So I think we'll leave it there. Unless anybody else has got anything to bring to it. I don't know.
Nah, we'll leave it there.
Yeah, no, I think we're good.
Wicked. That was a good conversation. I was a bit, like I said, worried about it being a bit overwhelming with how much we could talk about stuff.
Well, we've got ideas for another 2 videos now.
Exactly. I can make this like 3 parts if you want. But yeah, wicked. So yeah, until next time, we shall speak again. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Speak to
See
you
you soon,
then.
guys.
See ya.